Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the EUphoria podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and SoundCloud. I'm Drakos. My co-host Kadril is out this week, enjoying some much-deserved or well-deserved rest and relaxation. But to balance it out, I'm joined by two incredible guests, Rekkles and Advienne of Fnatic, here now known as Martin and Hank, because I feel really weird calling you your gamer name the entire time. But welcome, gentlemen. I'm glad you can join me under positive circumstances. Yep. It's made it to groups. You qualified. Now you've had a couple days off, week off. What's the story been since we last saw you on stage?
So 1 day off, 1 team building day, 2 media days, scrims. That's it.
Damn.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of stuff to do, I think.
Yeah.
For groups, but obviously a much better place to be in than nothing to do, which was the case in the last bit. So yeah, happy times. I think for most of us, even if we lost the last game, it's happy times.
Yeah. Are you surprised at all, Hank? You showed up here, you came in out of nowhere, you got them to groups. Does it feel weird that you made it this far, or is it kind of just it expected for you?
To be fair, when I came in, I thought I would add something to the roster, and I also thought that the roster was already really good. They just needed kind of that spark, maybe that little bit of momentum, and I thought I could bring it.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I thought we would do better even in the regular season. And so after the first few weeks, there was a bit more shock to it. But yeah, I'm happy now that we made it. And I'd say now I'm a bit more surprised about it. But when I came in, I really thought
definitely it makes sense.
There. Yeah.
What does team building look like for you guys? Like, what do you actually do? I've heard many strategies over the years from teams and their team building exercises. Is there like the Fnatic special?
I mean, we're a board game team, I think. Very much a board game team, which is the case for most of my rosters, I would say, throughout the years.
So are you the board game enthusiast?
Actually not. It just feels like a gaming thing.
Happens,
yeah. So we are very much that. We play almost every day, a little bit together. But on the team building day that we had, it was more watching VODs together, our own games, some games from LEC, LPL, and then Escape Room together, which is
really fun.
Yeah, something that was really fun to do. Kind of like IRL board games, I guess.
Yeah.
There was some funny moments in there with Hank driving a car, which was,
Wait, okay, so how is there a car in an escape room? Because in my experience, escape rooms are very, pretty small. It's like escape room, not escape highway or
it was
road.
Like three rooms we had to go through.
Yeah.
And one puzzle in the third one was that you had to drive a car. Like you have this joystick, you have to drive the car, and we had to turn it around and grab, I think it was a key from it.
Yeah, there was a key on top of the car. And basically only one guy, he was in another room, and he could see the car, and the other guy in another room could drive the car. And so you had to direct someone to get the car kind of to you.
Yeah, got it.
But so I thought that was way too simple to be the solution to the problem. And so I saw a light in the back of like the little room the car was in.
Yeah.
And then on the back of the car, it kind of said an arrow of that it was the back.
Yeah,
and I thought I had to put the back towards the light because the arrow pointed towards the light. So I perfectly orchestrated that car to park with its backside into the light, which was, I think, a hell of a parking job.
Yeah.
But
15
also,
minutes parking.
But also entirely wrong. And it kind of screwed over our chances of finishing the room in time. And we actually missed it by the window by like 5 minutes. And we would have made it if I wasn't, I suppose, too smart for the
10
game.
minutes. Yeah. I mean, it's the classic, if this guy was better at League of Legends, that skill shot would have hit. It's just I can't predict can't predict the bronze challenges, can't predict the bronze movement.
But I think this sort of mindset is something that describes Hank pretty good on the Rift as well. Like always overthinking or like trying to make the next level play. And then sometimes it's like, okay, enemy is just playing bad. That's it. They are not here with the entire team face shaking. It's just the guys alone face shaking. But Hank always thinks like,
what does he know that I don't know? Because this
he always goes to the next level,
griefing,
which is really good a lot of times. And sometimes it's just, he's actually walking in alone. Just kill him.
You're revealing the secret sauce to play against Fnatic. Just turn your brain off and run it, Hank. And you'll think that someone's there.
I think they know something I don't know. I'm like, this guy must be cooking something real good.
But I think it's a really good trait for the most part, because we're playing the game well, I would say, much from Hank's, just the way he's communicating and seeing the game. I think a lot of it comes from you. So even though you park the car and you shouldn't have, I think it's fine. The overthinking part's a good trait,
yeah. Sometimes you're going to show up to things 15 minutes later, you're going to be a little bit shorter, but it's better than having someone who doesn't see the car into the light challenge when it's time, I don't know how much we could stretch this metaphor.
No, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good trait, and it's cool to hear already kind of like some of the things that you're bringing to the team. I would love to kind of start with you and your perspective on this off season from spring into winter. Because Rekkles, I think Martin has been very vocal on stream, kind of talking about some of the processes, and I still want to get your insight as well. But you went from XL, dropped out of the league. Now you're back on Fnatic, but not on Fnatic in like maybe the most glorious time to join Fnatic. You know what I mean? So like, what was this experience like for you? What was going through your head when they're like, hey, we need you to start on the lineup next season?
Well, coming into the academy team, it was already kind of my goal to look to join the team, because I felt like the things I do for a team get way more easily recognized if I'm within an organization, rather than if I'm outsider. And so it was kind of my goal to get in, but obviously the circumstances weren't the best. But I also knew that could be the case if I were to promote, because you never promote if everything is happy days and sunny. And so yeah, I knew I had a challenge, but knowing that it was a challenge, knowing that I had to bring something and that I had to add something extra, I feel like I kind of knew what to do, and I feel like I try to do that my best ability. I try to come in with a lot of energy, happiness to be there, happiness for the opportunity, and try to really show that energy, kind of revive the players that might have not had that as much anymore after defeating Split.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, I just really happy to be there, because I felt like I had incredible players around me that just maybe need a little push or need a little spark, and I felt like I could maybe provide that spark.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was kind of the idea coming in.
Martin, did you feel that when you came in? Did you feel that energy, like that positivity? Did it end up feeling like, skipping ahead a little bit here before we backtrack, but did it feel like, because I think that's the dream, right, for most teams when they swap players out, is that you're going to get that, that sick honeymoon phase, or you're going to have that spark, or you're going to reset and it's going to feel like brand new. Did you get that feeling? Was it that easy to like, once the new guys were there?
Yeah, I think especially in the laning phase, I definitely felt that with Hank, because something that was missing with me and Rox was the laning phase. We would do fine later in the game, but the early game was just not there, and the meta was really like, you need to contest both the first waves.
Shit. You got to fight for everything.
Yeah, and I had so much to learn, I think. So Hank was like the perfect guy to get in the team, because I think he has really good understanding, kind of tying back into what I said before. Like, he's really overthinking everything, every detail. Sometimes that means he's parking the car when he just should turn it around and grab the key. But he's really thinking twice about everything he's doing, and I felt like that part of the game was really missing for me. Something I have to learn still to do well. I don't think I'm doing it too well right now, but at least there is like there's a push for it. There's someone that's there next to me trying to actually win the lane, to do things well from the start, to get somewhere with the game. And I really felt like that part was missing in my game. I think it's been missing now for a while, actually. So it's really nice to contest.
Have someone that's going to push you to not just like autopilot through lane, but like appreciate all.
Because later in the game, I do really well for the most part. I think my team fighting has always been really good. My game knowledge has always been really good, but the early game has been something I've struggled with for a while. So it's nice to have Hank there doing Hank tech, we call it, trying to
But I think that's cool. I also think it's cool to admit that like the early game is an area where you struggle, because I think people assume that when you're as veteran as you are, that you kind of got it all figured out, and it's just kind of peaks and troughs in terms of performance, and it's not as often you're willing to like pinpoint specifically.
I think it's like individually, I think I have a pretty good grasp on what I need to do to win my lane, but it's always a duo thing, right? And with Rox, it just wasn't there. Like, he probably has a good idea on how to win his lane, just as how I do. Yeah. But together we didn't have an idea on how to win the lane, and I think that's what Hank brought for me, like a connection between the two of us. His Hank tech, where we are doing things level 1, we're having a plan with every wave. I think this part was really missing in my game, that we had a connection, a plan. So he brought that to me.
I just want to say, you've already given me so many great memes to use in casting.
Hank Tech.
I got Hank Tech, and is he gonna park the car? You know, I mean, he's like, when you're just like when you're sitting there and the guy's inting and you're just not going in, I'll be like, it's just trying to park the car. Grab the key, Hank. Grab the key.
It's like an advanced way of I'm cooking, you know.
Yeah, just let him park.
Just let him park.
Let him park. But I don't think we should let you park. We're just
Don't let me park.
Yeah, we're not
Do
supposed to
not
let you
park.
park. It's not like let him cook.
Yeah.
It's not.
Let him cook. Don't let him park.
Don't let him cook. Don't let him park. I like that. We're gonna stick with that. I mean, for you, Martin, obviously once you know Hank is there, you know you're there too. But was there uncertainty for you in the offseason? I mean, like it was obviously super rough in spring, really like high expectations for a roster that ultimately didn't meet them.
Yep.
Were you worried at all? Were you ever concerned that like you might not make the cut?
For sure, yeah. I was worried for most of the offseason. It wasn't until they actually told me I'm in the team that I finally believed it, because there were rumors behind the scenes that Upset was coming back, and then there were rumors for a while that I was just playing, but I never really knew for sure. So it wasn't until they actually told me that this is the roster, you're playing, that I guess I believed that it was actually happening. So tough time between the splits for sure. Maybe not the best way to like come in with full energy for the next split, but I also think it was fair how everything played out. I mean, we had a really bad split. I had a really bad split, so I think it's fair that.
Yeah. How was that like? So obviously 3 weeks you guys are knocked out.
Yep.
3 weeks the rest is what happens, and then we have that 1 week break. What was the timeline like essentially in those 4 weeks? Did you know after 2 weeks that you were in? Did you know after 3 weeks you were in? Like when did you find out?
After 3 weeks, I would say. So most of the time that you guys were just playing, we were figuring out what's happening.
Yeah.
And then by the time you finished your split, we started practicing. So maybe we had like a week in advance of the other teams that were still playing.
We didn't even finish our split.
Yeah,
he
didn't even finish. He was still playing LVP.
Yeah.
Our official matches while we were already scrimming with the team in Berlin. So
I think we had like plus 1 week on most teams, but 3 weeks of downtime where I was really worried. And again, I think it was fair how it played out. It was just tough situation, something I obviously didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
But I also understand why it ended up happening. We had a really bad split. I played not my best League of Legends. Kind of a reality shock in a way. Coming back to the LEC and that level of scrim and like how much I had to relearn from being away for a year.
Yeah.
I think it, especially like the long off season I had. So we finished LFL in August. I lost my playoff series right before your Masters.
Yeah.
And then I had nothing until January. So I had 4 months of no scrims. And for the most part in LFL with K-Corp, I was scrimming against EU-Masters teams or other ERL teams. So when I came back to Fnatic, it was like a reality shock or check, I don't know what you call it, to again go to that level of
reality
play.
check. Yeah.
To go to that level of play and how many like bad habits I had built up, especially I think during the 4 months with no scrims, I built up so many bad habits that I wasn't able to deliver individually during the winter split. I think I'm in a way better place now. I have way better games on stage in scrims, but still a long way to go. It's sort of like crazy to look back at my career now and how spoiled I was to always play like in the best team, have the best scrims, travel to international tournaments, scrim against like all the LCK teams and LPL teams. Like I've had a really like high level of practice environment, and then as of late, very low level of practice environment. So I kind of have to like relearn everything now. I feel like in a way.
Yeah,
build myself up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's cool now that you can recognize in hindsight how special and significant that was. But I can imagine that that's like super jarring, and like how big of a shift that is, and how much whiplash that is to go from like, because you don't know what you don't know, and if you've only ever experienced the good things, you're not even aware. You just take a lot of things as a given, and so having that shift is, I mean, it sounds super intense, but I think that like, to the credit to both of you, I think it really shows. And this is no insult to Rux, obviously, but you talked about it. Maybe you guys just didn't click or it didn't work out, but you like your stats were shit last season. You guys couldn't make it through a lane phase, and obviously that's a bigger team issue as well. You know, it's not just like individual stats in League of Legends can always be a bit misleading because at the end of the day it's a team game. But like this season already a significant bump, even just the eye test, even just the wins, even just like looking at your 2v2 lane. It's there's still been rocky moments, the Astralis game, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about. You know, like there's still moments where it's not perfect, but it's not a slaughter. You don't look lost.
At least we're trying. For sure some games we are inting, but at least we're trying, and I think the reason why we're inting is because we're trying. If we weren't trying, we could just drop plates be behind in CS and never die, but that's not what we're looking for
well,
here.
You
and
just look like you're competing. I mean, to be fair, like spring was a mess, and I don't want to harp on this anymore because I think you guys have turned it around. And I think that's the main focus here. But I think the thing is that it didn't look like you were coming in at the same level, and now it looks like you're competing, like you're fighting. You're fighting against competitors. You're not getting bullied, and I think that is something to be proud of, and I think that that's like a really cool thing. So you talked about only having, is it a week of scrims? Is it 3 days of scrims? I know with this schedule with 3 show days or three studio days, it's like it can be pretty tight. How many scrim games did you guys actually get together as a duo
before the LEC started?
Yeah, before the LEC started.
I'd say maybe about 2 weeks.
Yeah,
or about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less.
Less than
like
2 weeks,
12 days, maybe
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Did you do anything extra? Did you guys like play? I know duo queue is pretty restricted at high elo. Is it still restricted at high elo? I don't know. I've never been high elo, so it's like
it's no longer possible to do a queue.
We watched mostly games together, I would say, like doing the review part after scrims or just of other regions, talking about how we should play the lane together. I think mostly the talking part came from Henk when he joined, like the Henk tech thing, where he had a really good understanding, I think, of the ranged matchup specifically, which is something I was not so good at. I'm more of a melee. Yeah, like I'm used to having Hilly there with a melee champion, not a ranged champion. So
I also think the intricacies, because I remember when you used to play like Karma Ezreal with Yellow Star. I think it's just a different beast now to what it was in like season 5, season 6. You know, it's just the game has evolved.
Yep.
So one misstep feels like the end of the lane, whereas back then I feel like in Europe you could get away with a lot more.
I think the range matchups specifically, they're a whole different breed now, and I mean they've evolved to the point where people are picking Ashe support. And that just already kind of shows
the Kalista support, the everything.
Yeah, there's just so much crazy things happen is because people realize the traits that would make this lane win, and the whole game kind of plays differently, and the way you have to think about the waves, the way you have to interact with your opponents, with your resources is just entirely different, and so that can be a tricky one to tackle if you've never like gotten into it or you don't feel super comfortable.
I think it's, from what I've heard too, it's also something that's pretty hard to practice if you're not on a Chinese or Korean server. Like I've heard that in general from pros pretty consistently that range supports and solo queue are it's just a different level. Like you can really only learn in scrims against players who are better than you.
I mean, you need to work as 2 people together, right? Like let's say I'm playing Nautilus, I can hook in and then everyone with a mouse enabled can kind of click on the guy I just hooked, you know? But when I'm playing a ranged champion, I need my carry. I need to back me up the moment they want to go on me, and we need to kind of juggle the aggro and constantly play on one spot, and that's just a lot harder to execute, which means that in solo queue it's basically impossible to practice.
Yeah. And so for you, I mean, it sounds like you came in, you talked about it, like you wanted to come in, you talked about being in an org, and it sounds like a lot of the qualities that you believe that you're strong in are not something that you can see from like a solo queue ladder report or maybe immediately from like team results or a score line, which I think is fair in a support position, right? You don't get to have flashy numbers more often than not. But like, did you feel like, it sounds like he just kind of like took charge? Because normally I would expect, like when people think of you, they'd be like, oh, Rekkles gonna guide this young talent, you know. I think it's kind of like, were you caught off guard when he came in just with the Hank tech already so prepared with so many things? Like, was that surprising for you? Was it really cool? Was it special? Like, how did you feel when this guy out of nowhere comes in and he's like, this is how it's gonna be, and starts talking about lane?
It was surprising in a good way, I think, because that's the part I felt was missing before. We didn't really have a plan as a duo, so Hank came in, he had his tech, and he brought the plan to the table. This is how we do it. Obviously, we discuss it between ourselves, and we try to make the best plan possible. But the fact that he really wanted to make a plan in the first place, especially for the ranged matchups, I think helped a lot in those. With melee matchups, it's different, and maybe that's where I have more experience. Maybe later in the game, I have more experience on how we should play the game. But for sure, for the early, like, this was all Hank, I was just following. When I was playing in G2, we had this saying of coach shoots and we are bullets in the team, and I kind of felt like a bullet with Hank, that he would like use me, and I would just
I get it.
I would juggle the aggro with him, and like
it's cool. Well, you missed this episode for context, so I'm just going to tell this joke, even though Cater's not here to appreciate this. But in the original Transformers, you remember Transformers? Megatron, the big bad leader, turns into a gun. Someone else has to pick him up and use him. You're not Megatron because you're not the big bad guy, but you're the gun in this case, and someone else has to pick you up. And I think that's cool. Like, I love that.
So he was shooting me,
There you go.
And I think that coming into the team, I felt like I just got the opportunity to, use one of the best guns that were around, you know. So I was just like, if I get to shoot this thing, I better make sure I can aim.
And
know?
that's,
And,
I mean, I respect you to have the confidence to just come in and do that, because like, I think that there's almost zero areas in my life where I have enough confidence to come in and tell like a veteran of like a million years at this point, man, you live here.
I'm a dinosaur, yeah.
Yeah, you're not a dinosaur, but you like if I show up and you're not here, it's weird at this point. You know what I mean? It's very odd.
Don't worry, I'll be around.
Okay, I believe I'm stuck around this far. Things are going better. Things are improving. The other big side part of your changes, other than your top laner, who we're going to talk about soon, was kind of Nightshare and what feels like sort of a cultural reset. Now, I'm not as familiar with how things were run in winter, but I've had the pleasure of watching all of the Fnatic content that's come out this season to kind of prepare for this episode. Shout out to Pete from Fnatic, who makes really great content, gives that great level of insight. If you guys are ever like, Dan, what the hell is going on in Fnatic? Chances are the content is out there to explain it to you. So check that out. But like, what was the shift like for you as someone who played in both the winter and now the spring roster as well? What was the shift like culturally? What has Nightshare brought to the team to kind of like balance this whole thing out and get the ship going in the right direction again?
I think with Thomas, the one thing that he brought that maybe was missing before is just a dad figure. As crazy as that sounds, I think he's kind of just the dad of the team, and he takes care of us when someone is tilted or feeling a bit quiet or sad or angry. He's like really quick to pick us up and to almost nurture us, to like keep the group together, make sure everyone feels involved. It's like it's not even in my mind so much League. I mean, he brings a lot of good stuff about League as well, but in my mind it's more other stuff, like making sure we feel like a team. I think this is something that he brought that was missing before, so everyone has that camaraderie feeling. I think that that's something that's really big from his side. It can be like the board game thing, the escape room thing, just anything that really like brings the group together, and I think he's doing that really well and did that really well from day one. He was really quick to like, we're a team.
Yes,
there's no there's no question
really,
about it.
I think has good sense of like what's going on inside the heads of people, what's going on emotionally, and I think he plays into that really well, and because of that, that gets resolved easily, and you have more time to be a group of people rather than just individuals. And I think that is, especially in the current environment, and something you see, I think, in the teams that are doing well and the teams that are doing better more and more. It's no longer individuals carrying, but it's individuals working together and kind of going as a group and winning. And he really add that group feeling to the team.
And one thing that's been apparent that I've talked about, I feel like on every episode of the podcast this year, and especially in this format, is like the importance of this team environment where people can, talk to each other very openly. And it seems like that's something that he's bringing. If you're talking about breaking down those barriers or getting people to talk about how they're feeling or calling out these feelings rather than just letting them fester. Because I think that every time I've talked to someone about a team and they're like not talking about their problems, that team is usually not doing very well, and doubly so in a format like this where it's so fast. So I'm glad to hear that, like, in spite of a really difficult start to the year, that both you and Tomas and Nightshare seemingly came in and hit the ground running, which just seems like, and I'm glad to hear that it sounds like the team was receptive to it as well, because I think that it's one thing to show up at the start of the year when you have a month or 2 months or whatever and like build that from the ground up. It's another thing to build that in a week. And that's like, I think, credit to both of you that you're both able to, that you're both the kind of people who didn't wait to feel it out, to like see, what needs to be done here. You came in and were like, this is how it's going to be. This is how it has to be, because it sounds like anything else might just not have worked.
I think we were more receptive as well after the winter, like when things were so bad and everything was going wrong. Then when they came in and they had an idea, I think we were all very open and welcoming to
just tell us, please.
Just save us. So maybe in a way, winter made us more receptive. Maybe we felt more open to a new way of doing things. But I only see positive, like a positive change from Henk and Thomas in how they help the team behave.
So despite hitting the ground running in terms of like culture, in terms of like communication, despite having this positive outlook, week one was rough. Week one was a mess, and Oscarinin, not only was it like his first time on a big stage, and I imagine was probably difficult for him on like a nerves level, because that's a big challenge, but like everyone was going top, man. They like this guy got cyberbullied the entire weekend. They knew, like they smelt blood in the water. What was going through your heads in that week? Like, were you guys optimistic coming into that first week? Because it sounds like you had pretty high expectations coming into the season from what we discussed earlier. What were the expectations coming into the week? How did that week feel? What was that experience like of, again, finally the ship is going in the right direction, and then you immediately just hit like this iceberg that is week one?
Yeah.
You wanna?
Yeah, sure. Unless you want to.
No, you do.
No, for me, I felt like we were going to do good. I feel like we did well in scrims. I think as a bot lane, we were contesting the bot lanes, like the good bot lanes, the ones that you need to be able to contest to kind of feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I felt like we were doing that already in scrims. And so when I came into that week, I thought that we're going to just do really well. And if nothing kind of goes wrong or weird, then we will just like win the game kind of through bot.
Yeah.
And I felt like that happened a bit, but obviously on stage the first time, there's always things that changed, and that's kind of what happened. I think throughout that week, I think the confidence slowly started to go away. It's also because you're playing the game only like on the stage days, you're not really scrimming, and so you show up to the first game with confidence. And then you lose, and then the next day you have kind of nothing else to do than play solo queue, where potentially there's 3 guys going Soraka top and running you down. And then you have to play another stage game, and then maybe you lose that one as well, which I think what didn't help for us was also that like people were getting sick. I think Martin was already not feeling great, and then Marek was also feeling worse and worse. And then slowly you start to kind of spiral of like, are we bad? Like, what happened? So yeah.
Was there ever a moment in that week one, like where you like really were spiraling, either of you, where you're like, damn it, like I believed, but we are shit. Like, did you ever like fully let the doubt? Was that ever just fully there, or were you always kind of like holding on to faith? Like it's 1 week, it's 3 games, there's another week, because it's 9-game format. That's a third of your split just gone in the blink of an eye. You know what I mean? That's really stressful.
To be honest, I didn't think about it much because I was dying, so I was just trying to survive. Obviously it sucked to lose the games, but coming into it I thought, okay, SK is going to be really good and Vitality is going to be really good, so those are games that, how would you say, on paper are better to lose more okay to lose than the actual game. The actual game is the one I have a lot of regrets about, because I think if you swap the schedule around and we played them on the 2nd day or the 3rd day and we have a little bit less of jitters, especially for Oscar, then we most likely win that game, because we're in a really good spot that game. But we were just playing our first game on stage. It was hard for us to perform as well as we could have, I think, in that one specifically. So I wish the schedule was a bit flipped around, because that was our first game.
Yeah, that was the one where you dove. Sorry, Oscar got focused, but then you guys like successfully dove bot. You guys had a pretty decent lead bot, and then kind of. So what actually happened in that game? Was it just communication?
We threw at Drake. We threw at the Drakes. Yeah, we were winning that game, but we kept giving them objectives. So like they got first Drake with me having 30 CS lead. They still had the first Drake, and then we gave them, I think, the 3rd Drake, and then on the 4th Drake we contested. We actually got the Drake. We chased them into our own jungle. I died. They got Nash. Like it was. It was our game, I think, and we threw it. But going back a bit to your question, like coming into the week, I think everyone had a pretty good feeling. We're winning scrims. Again, SK Vitality are really tough games. If you look at like the winter split, the changes they've made, like SK were one of the best teams in winter, and Vitality were really good.
They're not like they're okay games to lose, because that's not a team that if you're right now just worried about the next step, like forget how good you want to be. If you're just worried about getting wins on the board, those are like acceptable.
Because
losses.
Most likely they are teams that end at the top of the standings. So XL is a team we are more likely to fight with the final spot. So that was a game we really should have won or needed to win. So it really sucked to be 0-3, because I think 1-2 would have been more than fine. But 0-3 was tough spot, because then you go into the next 2 weeks thinking, okay, we are gonna have to be the top team now, because if we don't have enough wins anymore. So we knew we had to beat Koi or G2 or Mad. Mad ended up not being a top team, but looking at it
at the time, with Koi, there was no reason to assume that Koi and Mad would not be both top teams at that point.
So tough spot with 0-3, but for me, like individually, my point of view was just trying to survive the weekend. I was dying.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So dying. I mean, you were really sick.
I had really high fever. Yeah, during our games. The evening would be worse, and first day we played first game 6.
Yeah.
So it was okay. Second day we played at 8. Not so good. Last day we played at 10. I was out. So tough, really tough weekend for me individually to like just get through the day to survive. So in a way, actually, maybe I put less emphasis then on like how we were doing, because I think if I was like fully healthy, playing my best game, and we were 0-3, then maybe that would take a harder toll on me than I'm playing bad, we're losing.
Yeah.
I could kind of like, in some weird mental way, just like put the bad performance together with the sickness and move on. But I think if I was fully healthy, or like all of us were actually fully healthy and we lost, then maybe that would have hit me harder.
Worse,
yeah. So maybe the sickness actually helped me in some way to just like, okay, this weekend 0-3, I was sick, whatever, let's go next weekend. I'm gonna get better. Let's do it.
So
yeah, I think the adversity helped us cope a little bit throughout the season for sure.
But actually something Hank said about like the official days, you have the game in the evening. Before that you have solo queue, then the game in the evening again the day after.
So
solo
is
queue.
that something you guys can rectify? Can you guys scrim before game days?
Yeah, so we actually talked about this after the first week, and we now have in place warm-ups where we either play 1 or 2 games before the official games, because we all kind of felt like what Hank was saying, if things are not going good, we have no way to like save ourselves. Because it's just an official loss.
There's no way to stop the spiral.
It's official loss into bad solo queue into official loss, and it just keeps going and going. So we put in place now warm-up / scrims before our official games to have more ways to like break the bad feeling that could be from an official. So
and I also think what makes it worse is the fact that you, with this split, you have 3 games, which means you have 1 off day and 3 practice days. So if you have 3 practice days only, and let's say one of them doesn't go well, or what happened to us is we had sick people, so our practice days got either cancelled or just didn't go well because people couldn't perform at their best. Then suddenly you're maybe scrimming 1 or 2 times a week, and then you show up to the stage, you lose a game, and then that's all you know. It feels like you're kind of playing the LEC from scratch. And I think that is a scary thing.
I mean, it's impressive because despite that sickness, and I think, did anyone on your team not get sick over the course of this first 3 weeks?
He had 1 day.
I had like 1 day where I was feeling
He was
a bit
pretending he was superhuman,
weird.
and then he had 1 day where he was just dying under the blanket.
Which proved that I was superhuman.
Okay, because it was 1 day. Yeah, got it. You're superhuman. Cool.
Exactly.
I want to. Yeah, you're superhuman.
Super Hank.
So that sucks. Again, like the amount of the odds feel so stacked against you, and obviously on paper you guys still have like so much all-star talent on your lineup, as well as Advienne. You're proving to be like incredible as well, even if you don't have the pedigree of some of the other guys. And Oscarinin, who week 1 was bad, but like as we've seen week 2 and 3, obviously has a lot more to be seen from him and that step up. But like, so despite this sickness, it was actually a pretty positive week 2. Was that the moment where you're like, you could like finally breathe a sigh of relief and be like, we're not shit, we're a good team, like we can actually do this? Did you start to believe at that in the moment?
For me, I think maybe that week was the biggest emotional roller coaster in my entire career, where I think I felt at an incredibly low point after the BDS game, where I already had the Vitality game where, okay, maybe I didn't put myself in a great spot from draft, playing in Xayah with the Ashe Seri, but still like it felt like my game to kind of win. If I play really good on the Ashe, I can maybe kind of carry this. And then we lost that because it didn't work out very well. And then also the BDS game where we just missed that kill on bot lane, where if that works out, that will be like game winning, and we will.
We misread the matchup a bit. We thought that, or I thought that if we get hooked, like let's say we land a little bit of poke on enemy AD while he's farming creeps, and then we get hooked after, we actually win. It doesn't matter if we get hooked.
Yeah.
But the way we played it out was.
I thought so as well. I thought I'm just gonna let the guy hook me. I have Guardian. He doesn't even have lethal tempo. We're just gonna like surprise them. We're gonna win that. The guy dies, and it's game over for him.
It was very close. If we played a little bit better, I think we actually win that.
Yeah.
So we get hooked in. They think they have us, but actually we have them.
Exactly.
I like that.
Like call the ambulance.
Little trap carving out for me.
I just wanted to add that. You can continue now with your.
No, that's really good context to have.
No.
Or the greatest cope of all time for getting hit by the hook.
Well,
actually, it was a plan to get hooked. I just walked up. I wanted.
You
I actually wanted him.
We actually played it in scrims a few times this matchup, and from our experience in scrims, if we got hooked at the right time, it was sort of like them killing themselves.
Yeah. It's a big bait.
maybe in this particular game it wasn't at the right time, but it wasn't like unintentional. We actually practiced.
No, I know. I'm memeing you. Like, I'm memeing you. I believe what you're saying. I have no reason to doubt you, but I think it's funny that it also doubles as a sick cope. Again, the memes coming out from this, like the amount of stuff I'm going to be able to say in cast or solo queue now. Like, no, bro, you don't understand. I'm supposed to get hooked.
Yeah, they let me park.
Hank told me. Advienne told me. Fnatic support. He said, get hooked here.
Okay, continue with your weekend story. Yeah, so BDS game, all-time low. Yeah,
thank you.
Continue.
So I was there. Yeah, you're great. So I was there. I got hooked by the Blitzcrank, and I felt really embarrassed by just dying like that, because it just also looked so stupid. We lost that game kind of because we could have maybe carried that game from bot. I could have carried that game, but I didn't, and so I hit a really low point. Like all the energy that I had coming in, like doing well in scrims. Feeling really confident, like, hey, I can compete at this top level. I can be good enough to play in Fnatic. Kind of started to erode after those 2 games.
Yeah.
And then also the sickness, so we didn't really have like great practice.
Yeah, how much did you said like 1 or 2 scrims?
We canceled 1 day each of the weeks. So both, 1 week we canceled the Wednesday. So we usually have Tuesdays off after the show.
Yeah.
Then the first Wednesday we canceled because all of us had to go see the doctor to get our prescriptions for antibiotics. And then the week after, Ivan got really sick. This was for week 3. Ivan got really sick towards the end. He played in his own room in the office just to try to contain everything that's going on. So we canceled the Friday. So there was 1 week, 1 day each week that we canceled.
1 day each week that we canceled, and still then the games that we played were like, we kind of had to force ourselves to scrim, even though people weren't feeling 100%. And so that means you're not really scrimming as well as you want. And so that combined with the fact that I already had 2 crushing losses where I felt like the game was in my hands to win and I didn't win it for my team.
The infinite positivity and optimism.
At some point eroding.
You're superhuman, but you're still human. You know what I mean?
Exactly. There's still a human aspect to it. And so I felt really down. And I remember what did we play after BDS? It was Heretics. I remember just going to the bathroom. I felt really bad after the BDS game, and I just like decided for myself at that moment, like I'm just gonna come out like nothing ever happened, and I'm just gonna play this game. And then I don't know, if we lose, then I'll see how I cope that time, And then that game was still a bit shaky, but at least we won it, And I think that kind of sparked all the momentum. Like, hey, we can actually win. It's not. The script is not 100% against us, And
99.9.
99.9. We just gotta make the good anime storyline.
We had a chance.
You like that twist? You like that sickness twist? Ooh, fever so high you can't see the screen. How's that one? How's that one taste?
Exactly.
Fnatic?
You just haven't lived through the 0-4 power spike yet. I know it from Worlds 2017. 0-4 is power spike.
0-4 is power spike.
So we have the 0.1% chance.
Not so good in this format. I'll be honest. It's a little rough in this format.
It's a daring power spike, but so. Then we started winning, and then we won the game after that as well, and that's when I really got the vibe back, and I felt like, hey, we can win, and people were getting better, and then
because as close as and messy kind of as that Team Heretics game was, like you guys smashed Koi. You know what I mean? Like, admittedly, like, was their draft a little bit suspect? Yes, but like Razork was on a goddamn tear, and I have never seen a more useless Taric Kalista in my life. And like, no shade to them, that just was maybe not the best game play, maybe not the best draft for them, but you guys like really shut up. And I think that's the moment where, because the Team Heretics game, that looked like a team that was struggling won a game. The Koi game looked like this is a team that is good that won a game. And I think that was the moment where a lot of people were like, oh shit, like maybe it's not doomed for Fnatic. You know what I mean? And especially as we came into that week 3, and like week 3, I mean, you guys just continued to deliver. It sounds like even though sickness was still happening, did it feel like there was like a visible, or like was there a change that you noticed coming into the office prepping for week 3? Like, did everyone feel more optimistic? Did it feel more alive? Were people more excited?
I think so, yeah. I think that we saw that we could win, and we saw that we could actually crush a team if we got a good lead. And obviously Razork was completely smurfing that game. He was completely in the zone. Yeah. But I also think he saw that he could do that, and then Oscar saw we could win. And then we all saw that, we are a team that can actually beat teams maybe convincingly if we get a good draft.
Yeah.
And I think that's really brought energy to the week after. Yeah.
I think we had both kinds of wins we needed, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
if I look back at the split, without the Heretics win, we were probably doomed.
Yep.
I think we needed one of those scrappy wins where we just get the win on the board.
Yeah.
And then I also think we needed the Koi win in a way where we are smashing a team, because how that week could have also played out is we beat Heretics in this scrappy game,
Yeah.
and then we get smashed by Koi, and we're 1-5, and the Heretics game doesn't really feel like a win because it was so scrappy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
It only really put us in a place where we feel like we can win a game, not actually like
Not that you
win,
can be
win.
better.
Yeah.
You can just like you can win. You
Yeah.
can you can
we
get
can at
down
least
in the
not
mud.
be 0-9.
Yeah.
But with the Koi win, we showed ourselves that Scrim can be staged, I think.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our Scrim games are kind of like that. We're doing
Yeah.
really well in Scrims and always have been. So I think we needed both of those wins. Like both wins, the different kinds of wins were very needed for us to like fully believe in the project, I think, for week 3. And then after that, it's just been kind of smooth sailing. I mean, Astralis Day was really unnecessary, in my opinion, because sure, it didn't really matter, but I think we could have done a way better job in terms of like how we planned the draft and how we wanted to play the game. It felt like we were very loose with all of the things we did so well in the other games. So in my opinion, very unnecessary, but in the grand scheme of things, unimportant, I think, for how the next step is going to be.
Well, and also again, compared to your start of season and compared to that Team Heretics game, you guys were playing League of Legends. Like you were, Humanoid was building fat leads. Like, yes, you guys got 2v2 bottom lane. Yeah, that
Which
wasn't
was entirely my fault.
Well, I mean, it wasn't the flashiest moment in either of your careers, but like you guys were making shit happen. And I think that is like, is that enough? Coming best of threes, I can't say. But again, when we look at the whole year and not just this split, that's sick progress. Like that's insane progress from week 1 to week 3. And I think that is a really cool thing. The other piece of the puzzle for you guys, other than Human and Razor here, who aren't getting us talked about as much on this podcast, and that's okay. They're both doing great. Is Oscarinin. And I never wanted to write this guy off on an individual level because of the circumstances and the team he was coming into. It's just like you're not set up for success, doubled down by sickness. But despite that, and despite your rough start, he was, a monster in the second half of this season. He played really well, and there was, definitely better games and worse games overall. But, rookie on stage first week, gets camped, turns it around week 2, 3. It's a great story, so I'm here for it. But what is this guy like behind the scene? Like, what is he bringing to the table? Because not a lot of rookie top laners get to pick Jace. Like that's kind of threw me. I wasn't ready for this. Like usually when we talk about carry top laners in Europe, we're praying that you're talking about one of the Korean imports, not domestic talent. So like, what is it like working with this guy? Were you immediately like, this guy's going to be sick? Is he like you as well, where he brings a lot of intangibles behind the scenes? Is he more reserved? Tell me about Oscar.
Very quiet guy, I would say. Like, I think he probably fills a similar role as to what the imported top laners bring for other teams. More like playing on his own, not talking as much, but really high individual level.
Yeah.
Like completely smashing some lanes, like making enemy pause in 5 minutes in scrims sometimes. Maybe missing out on some team play aspects, but that can be learned. I think this is not the end of the world if he misses a timing where he should be moving instead of pushing his wave, or maybe there's a time when he's all-inning top lane when he's weak side. Can happen, things you can learn, but at least his individual level is really high. So we know if we can get him going in a game, he's just going to take over, and you've seen that a little bit, I think, now in the official games. We see it a lot in scrims. Like, there's just some games where he's completely 1v9 and there's nothing they can do. So really nice to have that kind of X factor, in my opinion, in a team. I don't see myself as the craziest of players. So I always found that when I have crazy players in my team, that works really well, because I bring the consistency and then I have someone else that brings the
craziness.
So with Pipo Hilly, I was really successful because they brought the craziness. Sorry. And I can see something similar with Oscar, where like the guy doesn't say anything, but he's just solo killing and on me twoing, and it's just like, okay, you don't need to talk. Just do your thing.
If you're solo killing, you probably don't need to say anything. That's fine.
I think it's kind of like I feel like what a team needs to perform well is a team, or at least that's how my view is on it. A team needs both firepower and glue. And I think I probably am a bit more on the glue side. I'm consistent. I add something outside the game. I think Martin and I probably both do better at gluing the team together.
Yeah.
Although I think Martin's probably both. But Oscar is really like just the firepower in your team. You know, you need people that also have the mechanical prowess, the ability to get leads on their own, to snowball their leads, to surprise enemies in ways where they can't respond because he's just better. And I think Oscar really brought that to the team. On top of the fact that he's 19-year-old, he's such a hungry rookie. League of Legends he lives it, he breathes it.
Yeah.
And he cares so much, and to see that in someone, to care so much about the little things he does, the way he performs in scrims, I think that gives you something to mirror yourself to a little bit. So yeah, that's also what he has.
How does that manifest? Is he like spending every day like going back and reviewing his laning phase? Is he asking questions? Like when you talk about him like really caring, how do you see that he really cares? Like how does he show it?
Well, you can just see it in the way he plays the game. Like he really gets destroyed if he doesn't play the perfect game. For him, if he doesn't play a lane phase that is like to him what he should be doing.
Yeah.
Even though that's maybe not what you should expect from a rookie at that moment, you know,
Sure.
He's destroyed by it, and you can see it. He's unhappy, and he's angry at himself that he wasn't playing the best game possible. And yeah, you can see it in the way he approaches lane. Like he's really focused on how he's looking at that, and you could also see it just how he was on stage. Like you can see that he cares so much, because no one would have like a bit more shaky performance on stage like that if they didn't care so much, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool thing to have, and I mean, like that's a rough but respectable way to like engage with your career and your profession. You know, like I always respect people who can do that, because I think that's really hard to live a life where you take every loss like it's the most important loss, or to like react in such a strong way, or to feel absolutely destroyed. You know, and like obviously you don't get to pick always how you react. It's not as easy as like I'm just not going to care. Like, but if you're that kind of person, I think that's really cool that you care so much, and that level of commitment. I'm glad that for you guys, it's showing up and it's looking strong on stage. And if you guys are talking about yourselves as glue, I think that I can see how you look at your top side of the map with the way that Oscar's performing and say, hey, we have a lot of firepower up there.
Yep.
Is that kind of how you guys want to be playing the game, where you're both like facilitating the rest of the team? Not that like at League of Legends is past the point where I think for most teams, 90% of the time we are like, you're gonna have to play, I don't know, Senna, whatever, for your entire career, whatever the weak side bot lane is now, you know, whatever the sit safe and scale bot lane is. But it's like, would you guys both, I think in your perfect world or your perfect version of Fnatic, both prefer to be like facilitating the other people on your team, setting up the other people? Or are you kind of the guys who like want to play through you?
I think the most optimal way for us to play would probably be through bot, because if he's 1v1 top, then game is good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the more pressure we can bring in bot, I think the more it will help our firepower topside to have space to just play the game. For example, against Astralis, I think that they did a pretty good job at shutting him down top. He was getting level 2 ganked into the 2v2 or 3v3 they had top, into dove on the big wave. So they were really trying to shut him down. And I think the more pressure we can do bot, the less likely something like that is to happen. So in my head, the more optimal game wouldn't be to say, we're weak side bot, do your
Go
thing.
gank top.
It will be,
we're
gonna hit your
1v1.
tower plates bot, and if you don't come and gank us, we're gonna take that tower, and then that in turn will give Oscar space. So
I think it allows us to do both, you know, because I don't think every team probably has that ability, but we can do that on bot and say, hey, if you guys don't come here, we're gonna take something you don't want us to take. And at the same time, Oscar can do the same thing, you know.
Yeah, just on individual advantage, or I mean, draft.
I think
advantage.
Actually the worst thing you can do is what you're saying.
Yeah,
like,
it's just send your jungler top and let it be a 2v2.
Just accept that top is strong side, bot is weak side, regardless of draft or how the game is going. Because I've been in that many times.
I know you have. Yeah, I remember.
I've been in that many times, and it feels sort of like an ancient way of looking at the game, because teams are good enough now to like really like pressure you and take stuff from you if you are not contesting. And I think that's kind of what happened to us in winter. Like we had this idea that bot is just weak side, and we play against some teams and they're taking our tower.
They're walking up and getting free money because you decided bot is weak side.
Yeah, they stack 3 waves and they dive us. Before, a couple of years ago, nothing of this would ever happen.
Because tower damage didn't mean anything. Money. And
there were
nobody
no plates,
dived.
No one dived. So Now it's just a very different game, and now I think you can't just say this lane is not contested. I think you just have to contest everywhere, especially if you're winning. That is like the actual best strategy as well. If you're winning, you go where they go. If they want to gank top, you go top and you kill them. If they want to gank bot, you go bot and you kill them. That's the best way of playing a winning game. So I think the old ways of weak side, strong side, like there are times in the game where you are weak side, strong side, but it cannot be predetermined. It's from the flow of the game.
Yeah. And also it's not as let's say like black and white as it maybe used to be. I mean, sometimes it is with like, we still have like Xayah is still in the meta, who's obviously not going to get a lot of attention, but it's not as simple as just like we go to this lane or we don't go to this lane.
It's very specific to champs, I think. You have some champs you can do this bot with, but most of them are not AD carries, I would say. You can do it with Sig's bot, maybe with Seraphine bot, where you can just clear the wave from a mile away and they can't do anything about it. But with almost every AD carry in the game, I think you are in a spot where you have to contest bot, because if I'm not taking creeps, I'm just getting slow pushed on and dived, or my plates are falling. So it's very specific to champs. Maybe the Xayah on top, and the Seraphine 6 spot, but that's it really. The rest of it, you have to play the game properly, and you have to actually think about where they have waves stacking, what they can do with those waves. Like, you have to contest basically. Yeah.
No, I like it. I feel like I don't know if League of Legends is getting more interesting every year, or if I'm just finally learning more about League of Legends.
I think people are just getting better.
Like maybe a little both, probably. But I like it more and more, hearing like the importance of draft and those matchups and playing to kind of where you have those strengths, as opposed to looking at it as like, we have these players, blah blah blah. They're the strong players that we.
For sure, you should lean into the strengths.
Also true, but it's like there's just more and more variables that are being appreciated and added in here, which makes it more complicated, but also I think a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Now we are moving up 2 patches. Now, there's a lot of changes. Initial impressions from you guys, assuming you talked about it, you scrimmed a little bit. Is there anything that you're excited about on the new patch? Again, don't want you to leak any picks. We're going to talk about your matchup versus Straws in just a second, but before we do that, is there anything super spicy you've seen in solo queue? Anything fun for all the bronze to plat Andes out there that are just looking for something new? Like, is there any?
I guess Jinx is strong for AD now, but she was already kind of played before, even like pre-buff. People were playing it in the LEC.
Now you can steal Baron better.
But now it's buffed, Now you can get sick cool Reddit plays. So maybe Jinx is the one now. I don't know. But honestly, not too much new. I think AD carries got kind of nerfed. I don't know if it's 13.5 or 13.6 when they had Bloodline nerf, Tempo, Quick Blades.
Bloodthirster got nerfed, Quick Blades was 13.6. Xayah got nerfed on 13.5. That plus the Quick Blades nerf is actually pretty chunky.
So good nerf, I think, because like Bloodthirster tech was too much.
Oh, you mean you didn't like playing against Bloodthirster first Draven? You didn't think that was not, a really great time when he had that 200 damage shield and you didn't have an item yet? Yeah, no, I agree.
So some of that was for sure needed, I think, for AD carry state, but I wouldn't say too much have changed. Just Bloodthirster isn't. Bloodthirster overheal was really too much, I think. So that's a little bit less now. Jinx is there. I think Jinx is a really cool champ to play and to watch, probably. So healthy. I think that she's in the meta. Maybe
I agree.
Maybe this also in turn then changes a lot of things on the map, because if you all of a sudden have a Jinx bot, that means she can carry the game on her own. You don't maybe need as much now a carry top side. Or maybe your support should be more peeling now than like a ranged support or an engaged
support.
Herald
gets riskier because she takes tower plates so fast.
So things in tandem can change as well. But for AD carry, I would say Jinx is the only one that really like popped up as of late. But she already popped up in 13.4, so I don't think that was
you guys played her in your last game.
And I also think that the ranged champions probably on both, like the supports, the crazy picks, like we're kind of over that phase. And it just got on
sickle nerfs, Ash base damage nerfs,
Tank gold,
volley. There's a lot of abilities in the game that I think are objectively like wildly powerful, like smoke screen, Soraka silence. Volley slips in there, and I hate it. That ability.
I will say though, in my solo queue games, Senna support looks incredibly strong. I do not know why, because she has not been buffed.
And she has been actually.
She has been in the last 2 patches.
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna look because I didn't see any Senna changes, but
I don't think she was. But so the sickle nerf was there. Umbro Glaive nerf was there, and I thought, as everyone else probably, this is the end for AD carry support. And I swear, in my solo queue games, Senna is way too OP. I know it's solo queue, like she's getting stacks on cooldown.
13.4, she got attack speed ratio increased slightly.
Oh yeah, they tried to put her as AD carry.
Yeah.
Tried to make her AD carry again with Kraken build.
Ace, but I mean, it's a lot of alt. It's just alt buffs, so it's not that big. 13-3, there's some bug
But
fixes.
it's not the crit one I see on support. It's the same as before. It's like lethality rush. They skip the glaive. They do
the crit one.
Me
that
too.
Was fun.
But you need too much gold, and
Yeah.
on AD carry it's just not possible with farming. But fasting Senna in Master LQ looks crazy strong, and I don't understand why. They were trying to nerf AD carry support, and now all of a sudden Senna support is like. Anyway, But all right. I mean, I love fasting Senna not because I like Senna. I actually hate Senna, but I like the champion she enables. So I would love to see that personally.
It adds a lot of creativity.
You might see it with
to the
some
bot lane.
teams. I mean, Koi bot lane used to be a Senna like a Senna team, Senna lane team.
Kind of.
Mad when Carsey played there with Kaiser used to be a Senna team. So there are maybe some teams that
G2 do weird
have the
shit.
same experience as me, where this champion is just killing you from a mile away every game. So maybe they pick it up for this patch. I don't know.
Or it's bait and you think it's terrible. Who knows? That's
And
the
that's why he's
the
saying
propaganda. Yeah. You never
Or maybe
know.
I'm trying to persuade my team to play it.
Ooh, could go either way. I mean, I'm excited. I hope that the patch is a little bit different. I think we were I would love something different in bot lane. I think that's something fresh. I wouldn't mind 1 or 2 patches of hyper carry versus hyper carry. I wouldn't mind full Xayah, Xayah. I would love. I Xayah saw a little bit, not so much, But I guess we'll just have to see how it unfolds. There's Vayne buffs too, but I don't.
More top lane, I would say, than AD.
Yeah, well, they nerfed top lane a tiny bit on the max health damage, but I think that more than anything, people are probably still just going to play her top. But we'll have to find out. Shifting focus again, though. You guys played Jinx Thresh into Xayah Blitzcrank. We talked about it. There was a 2v2 kill. It was rough. You said it was your fault. What did you do? What happened?
I mean,
did you tank a hook? Did you think that they were you had the advantage again? So you just walked.
I don't know. I just there was a whole motion of mistakes kind of in a row, where first I saw enemy Xayah in my face, and I kind of knew Blitzcrank could be around, but I didn't want him to be there when I didn't see Blitz. I felt insulted, so I wanted to punish him.
Yeah.
And then
you grabbed the key instead of trying to park the car.
Right. And then the Blitzcrank instantly showed up the moment I go, and I'm suddenly in a little bit of a pickle.
Yeah.
And then I just have to accept it. I have to take the loss and be like, okay, I'll probably just flash. And then I have no flash, but we can play the game. Xayah has no cleanse.
Yep.
Fair trade-off. Maybe we get a kill of it. Maybe they get a kill of it. At least we can still play the game. But then I remembered the last time against Blitzcrank, I screwed up. So now I have to redeem myself. And so I decide that I'm just going to try and sidestep the hook.
Oh, no.
He's parking the car.
Oh, he's parking
the car.
Park the car. No, it sounds like he's trying to grab the key. I have to sidestep the hook.
I was like, I'm just sidestepping the hook. I can do that. I've done it before in my life. And so the Blitzcrank comes. He hits me with the edge of the hitbox. And I don't flash it because it's not super clear hit. Dodge, and I didn't want to do, I just wanted to be the one dodging it kind of. And then I get hit. And then I can still get out, but I throw a lantern with which I block my own champion, so I cannot go to the corner, which would make me escape. And then I see my champ walk around like that. I flash out, I still get hit.
God
and then
bless you guys made it, because if that was your elimination game and that was your play, you want to talk about a spiral? You would have been like, I'm the worst support of all time. But luckily, you didn't need that win.
Yeah, we didn't need it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think after that we could have still really easily won the game. But I definitely didn't make it easier for my team, and that's completely on me.
I mean, it was tricky because Kapi was really strong that entire game, and
Xayah is. Yeah,
Xayah's, I mean, she got nerfed twice.
Yeah.
Navori got nerfed and she got nerfed, so
that was pre-nerf.
Yeah, this was pre-nerf. That's what I mean. She got nerfed, so obviously she was pretty strong on that patch. We
had our moments to pressure that game. We knew we were gonna win the first level, so we could set up a slow push. On that slow push, I can base, get my item advantage, and then we can play before they crash. Mm-hmm. We didn't do that, which was really bad. And then on the next slow push, we should always be diving. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, that game, we just felt way more loose with what we were doing. I think normally we would be really precise with those timers as a duo and as a team.
Yep.
And in that game, I just felt okay, we're going to give Xayah. We're not going to do anything to Xayah. Just let her farm. Yeah. And then... she's pretty strong. Can't do much later.
Yeah, because
she one-shots you, completely one-shots your front line.
Yeah.
And any other AD carry, even Jinx, who is supposed to excel at that, is nowhere close.
Yeah, and Navori Xayah is disgusting.
Yeah.
And God bless they nerfed.
So I think our loose way of handling that game was just really biting ourselves because I think if you give Xayah, you have to be really precise with shutting her down, because if she's in any way strong in the game, you cannot win a team fight.
Yeah.
You cannot go on her, and if you don't go on her, she's gonna kill all of you. So what do you do?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. You should have. We should have split the map that game. I think tried to fight a little bit less, but we were just perma fighting on cooldown, and she was.
Yeah, there was a couple times where you definitely like next to their tier 1 or whatever, just came over the wall.
Yeah.
Xayah's just stacking feathers, waiting for another person to walk in, just one-shotting all of you. Like there's definitely a few moments.
I think we would do that better in another game when,
which is important because you're gonna get another up to 3 games against this exact same team. But it sounds like, I mean, the good news, I think, if Fnatic fans are watching this or people who want to see you do well, is it's like, sounds like it's pretty easy for you to brush off. Sounds like you're pretty aware of what went wrong. How is this a draft thing? Is this just not giving Xayah up? Is it like, you already talked to us a little bit about diligence, but like, what do you actually change coming into your next matchup versus Astralis this week?
You want to go first?
Again, avoiding specifics of draft. Don't leak me the juice. Not live, at least on the podcast.
I mean, I think we were pretty clear on what went wrong and how like we approached it wasn't the right way. We were loose. We were maybe a bit lost at some phases. Like I think giving the Blitzcrank probably wasn't the best idea at that time, and we didn't really have a strat coming into that. Also, we will just not be as loose, I guess, coming in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that will already make like a big difference coming into the game. I think also for me, the mistakes I made, like I kind of understand why I made them. So I know how to avoid them next time.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a knowledge issue or a skill issue, but rather just like, I wouldn't say mindset, but just like a way of thinking about the situation that was wrong. And if I just adapt that coming into the next game, then I won't make these mistakes and then I'll be good in the game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think just fixing those things, which are, I think, fairly easy to recognize, will give us a lot more leg room, I guess.
We talk a lot about the champions kind of in isolation here and talking about the draft, but like when you talk about Kobbe and Jonghoon as a bottom lane, like what are your impressions of playing against them? How do you feel? How do they compare to some of the other lanes in the league? Because it seems like on paper, certainly, and across Astralis' wins, I think they've been like huge factors in Astralis'.
They were in winter as well. I think they've been
Kobbe's
good from the start. Like, I'm not talking just this year. I'm talking last year as well.
Yeah.
Like whenever they've played, they've always looked really good.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. Like, is this something that you guys think about when you like, are you guys kind of nameplate off gamers when you go to the matchup, you don't care who you're playing against, or do you like look at specific player tendencies? Do you focus more on specific matchups? Like, how does it feel to play against these guys?
I try to keep the player in mind because I think everyone plays a little bit different. So usually it feels beneficial to keep in mind how they want to play.
Mm-hmm.
I know some players want to farm more, some want to fight more, so I can like go into the draft with a different idea of what kind of matchup I want to end up in, or the early levels in how I should behave, because they have different ways of how they want to pressure me or how they want to get a lead. Something I wanted to mention before, this was like half an hour ago, so a bit late.
No, you're good. You're fine.
It feels like everyone's... Yeah, this was back when we were talking about, like, you were saying maybe people are just getting better at the game. This was when... Yeah, anyway. I feel like now when I'm playing LEC, there's no game which is, like, free. There's no one I'm playing against bot where I'm thinking, okay, this guy is bad. Yeah. Everyone's pretty good now.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of ties into like the Kobbe Jonghoon thing, because last year, even when they weren't doing well, they were playing well.
Mm-hmm.
In winter, when they weren't doing too well in the beginning, they were playing well, and now they're playing well again. So there's nothing that's free. I don't think Astralis is anywhere near free. I think they're actually kind of scary team because
I agree. Yeah,
draft feels so hard to plan out since they play a bunch of champs that no one else plays.
Zed.
So you have scrims that are gonna be basically useless for some lanes coming into this game, because they will just have completely different champion pools.
Yeah.
You're playing as a team, Astralis in this case, that play really aggressive. They level 2 gank, level 1 invade, they dive everywhere, they drop waves and fight. And again, scrims could be kind of useless here because most teams play a very opposite style where they are more controlled, reserved, trying to scale. Really scary matchup, I think. And I think that's what we struggled with a lot as well when we faced them last time, because they were just fighting us everywhere. And we don't know how to like stop it.
Yeah.
Because I think if we're not fighting and we're just playing the game out, kind of baiting them to like, please come fight us, and only taking the good fights for us, then it should be good, because they are in fact dropping waves. They are in fact playing comps that should be like kind of worse. They don't have much wave clear in their comps. They're playing full AD comps multiple times. So it just feels like we have to avoid their game, but it's so hard to avoid their game. They're like like the old G2 where they're just like, they're just brute forcing you.
That's high praise. And I mean, like, I can see what you're saying there, because I think that obviously in the perfect world of League of Legends, when someone, drops a wave, nobody dies, nobody concedes anything, and you've essentially just gained 300 gold over your opponent, or however much a wave is worth these days. You know what I mean? But and against them, it feels easier said than done, because if they actually can force the play and they actually can make it happen, then they can make it wildly positive for them. But it is definitely a more volatile way to play. It's cool to hear them get so much praise. And obviously Leader is that immortal curveball. I imagine for Humanoid, it's like, like what am I going to play against? Because he has shown now that he'll also just play the normal shit, which is like makes it even more annoying, because it's not like you can just be like, all right, what beats Aurelia? What beats Zed? Like, you have to also be ready for an A-Soul, an Annie, and credit to him, obviously a big glow up for Leader. Had him on the podcast a few episodes ago. But cool to hear them get that praise. Is it just discipline, you think, from your guys' perspective? Is it just not getting caught up into the craziness?
I think against Astralis, like, you can gain advantages, I think, relatively easy if you play the good game, if you play good League of Legends, but they have this constant looming threat of like an X factor, which means that while you're playing the game, you can't like kind of relax, because like a lot of things can happen that you're not used to. And so you need to be on edge. And I think if you are on edge and you are like sharp and you're at the top of your game, then they're beatable with good macro. But also it comes at the cost of like, if you sleep 1 second, you're going to get punished for it and you're out of your...
That can start at the beginning of the game. That can start with them 5 men invading somewhere, putting wards everywhere, and like they just have so much stuff that that 113 is planning. I know it's him because I play with him. So we just need to be careful of that. And we were kind of, I remember we were prepping for the Astralis game, and we had been scrimming them before, and he was level 2 ganking top. And I was asking Oscar, wasn't this the guy that level 2 ganked you in scrims a few times? And he was like, yeah, this was the guy. And then we went over their official games. They had no level 2 ganks yet, not a single one. And they usually had 3 camps into invade action, whatever you want to call it. And then against us, he level 2 gank again. So I know he's cooking. It's 1-on-3. I know it. So we need to be really careful with how we play, how we discipline ourselves, because it starts from the get-go.
This sounds like
level 1. That's it.
On a personality level, not to talk about your gameplay at all, but just like such an annoying matchup for you. As a guy who wants to analyze every possible outcome, when you find a team that's going to play not to, let's call it the rules of League of Legends, where it's like, all right, you have to sit in mid and catch this wave. You have to do this. I have pressure here. You have to back off and respect that. Like that sounds like, for you as a guy who wants to consider every possibility, just really annoying. Like, no comment on how it's going to affect your gameplay. It just sounds like this is like the worst, on a personal level, the most annoying matchup for you to play.
Oh, definitely. Because I always wonder if I can throw curveballs to enemy team, or if they can do the same to me. But if the curveball is just a bad play, I'm like, what's going on here? And that adds an extra layer of like sometimes confusion to it. It's like, but I have my own ways of dealing with that. I tend to ask my teammates who are maybe better at recognizing other things, like, hey guys, is this allowed? Like, is this legal? And then I act on it, which I think helps me a lot in dealing with that. But it is really annoying.
On a personal level, I can see that. Well, I mean, it's going to be really exciting. One of the first best of 3s of the weekend. But I wanted to talk about some of the other matchups too, get you guys' kind of takes or predictions on how you're feeling about some of the rest of the table. You guys playing against Fnatic, obviously it's double elim now, so you don't have to win, but you lose any hope of double elim and best of 5 if you just win through. The other team in your group, Mad versus Vitality. Mad have been looking a little lost, I would say, even if they found a little bit of redemption here. Like getting their tiebreaker, getting out in the end. Definitely a fall from grace. We talked about at the start, like I think everyone assumed that they would look like top 2, top 3 team. They have barely made it into playoffs, just behind you guys. They're up against Vitality. Like, is this a clean sweep for Vitality? How do you guys feel about Vitality as well? Because they're a team has super, super high expectations, but the game results haven't delivered, I think, in the same way, even if some of the games where they've won have looked really good.
I think that team is just like one ball of firepower together. And they're just really talented players, all of them individually. And it's just scary to play them because they can just outplay you in many ways in lanes. But I also think that maybe in situations where they cannot rely only on that,
Yeah.
they struggle, and that's why there's the inconsistency.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think that team, like if it gets rolling, if they find their way to kind of play together, then they're a really scary team. Yeah.
Yeah. And on the Mad side, is it just like, I mean, Mad is a team where I look at like this is a team where you look on paper, you see a lot of potential strengths. Chasey's had a lot of incredible games. He was looking really scary, especially in winter. Similar story, Xayah. I think that up until a lot of new junglers have been rising up to contest him coming into this year, you would say that he's probably like next to Malrang as number 1. And I think that the split maybe hasn't been the best for him. Similar for Hylissang. I think Hylissang it's not, again, I think the coin flip adage has gone too far at this point, but like he has games where he looks like a god and he has games where he doesn't look like he is nearly as good. So it's like, do you guys have faith in Mad? Are you like, Mad are really going to turn this around? Or do you think this is like Vitality are clear favorites here and you would need to see something that you like haven't seen from Mad yet for them to take this?
I think Vitality are very clear favorites for me. I'm actually surprised they ended 6-3, right?
Yeah.
Because some of their losses were free wins, I think. I think the BDS game was probably a free win if they played that out better. So in my mind, Vitality is really hard team to play against because they have so much individual power that they're almost always going to get a lead. That's probably how most of their scrims are going as well, that they're just getting continuous leads. So if they can do that on stage as well, get a lead, I'm pretty sure they are comfortable enough to end the game. As the opponent team, I think you kind of have to stop that lead from happening, so you have to be contesting everywhere, and I'm not sure if Mad is that kind of team to do that. They feel more like a mid-game team than an early game team to me, and I think to beat Vitality, you probably have to have a really good early game to stop their lead from happening. Yeah. We were not a really good early game team when we played them, and we got ran over in 20 minutes, so my way of beating them would be to like really try to contest the lanes because they have too much individual power. I'm just not sure if Mad is that team, to be honest. It feels like Mad is more the mid-game team, the scrappy team that's running around, fighting everywhere, and I don't know if they're gonna make it there.
Yeah, I mean it's a tall task. You're right. Like there are games where Vitality are building like thousands of gold and individual leads really early on. Fast forwarding, assuming you beat Astralis, you have to play them. Are you guys confident this time around that you can actually match them? That you can implement that same strategy you're talking about, where you can fight fire with fire in the laning phase and like get out at that point in the game where they can just take over?
It's gonna be hard, but more comfortable this time than last time. I think last time it was really embarrassing game. I think this time we play them, it will not be. It will be hard for sure, but it's not an impossible task. I think we just have to be really strong early, have a really like good plan of how we're supposed to do this, so that we don't leave anyone hanging. I think they're gonna be quick to like. If Oscar is in a bad spot or I'm in a bad spot, they're going to be quick to dive me and take my plates and zone me off the tower and put a lead on either Upset or Photon. So we need to be really like good at covering top, covering bot, covering top, covering bot, getting the push outs, getting the bases, making sure the game is stable, because then we can enter the mid game without minus 5k and probably play more of a macro game where I think we should be better. Just straight up better than Vitality. So we need to get to that point. But I'm surprised Astralis chose us, actually. I expected this to be us Vitality now, Mad Astralis first round. I'm surprised it's like this.
To be honest, I'm a little surprised as well. I don't know what Astralis' experience have been in scrims against Mad. Since Mad are also a team that's willing to be more scrappy, maybe they found...
From what I've heard, they have bad scrims all the time.
So
even in winter, they have bad scrims.
I was caught off guard as well. I think that I can see validity in both, and perhaps like they don't have the same insight into your success, and they're just like, we feel like... I mean, they did just beat
they
you.
Beat us.
Yeah. So maybe they're just like, well, we beat them once, we can do it two more times, get the fake best of 5.
Not that it really matters in the end, because you can make it through. Like even if you're Mad here, you can still make it through by beating us and Astralis. So it doesn't really matter if you play first in the end. But I'm just surprised they chose us, because in my mind, we felt like the stronger team than Mad at the time. So maybe they know something I don't know, or maybe they don't know what we know. Whatever way you want to see it. But in my mind, it's Vitality over Mad, and then us over Astralis, hopefully. And then we just need to be really strong early game against Vitality. That's the key.
So ultimately, you have to beat essentially 2 teams to make it out. So is it for you guys? Is it just Astralis Mad, like the clear path
Yep.
to victory.
That's the clear
here.
path, yeah. And then we have our chance against Vitality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That
think
would be
that would be
Yeah, not
perfect,
just generally
Like,
because you have to be better than two of the teams.
Yeah.
So not even thinking about the matchups and what order they're going to play out in, but it's like you guys feel like you can be better than Astralis and Mad. Like that's the cleanest path to victory for you guys.
Definitely,
I mean,
yeah.
It's a step-by-step thing, right? We
Yeah.
beat Astralis, we beat Mad, we can beat those, then everything after that is kind of a bonus, and then we keep on marching forward with the momentum that we got, And I
Yeah.
think we are a team that's like we're still a very new team, and I think that the more time we can give ourselves, the more we can grow, and then the more we can build on that again. And so yeah, just take it step by step and see where we end up.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Shifting attention to the other side of the bracket, BDS, SK, G2, Koi, G2, aura of untouchability and best of. Do you think it's still there? Do you think it's still just like there's just the easy predict in just about every series?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine also if you're G2 and you win the winter split, you have your qualification for MSI. It's natural that you don't go as hard
in the regular season.
In this regular season, because I feel like looking at them this regular season versus last split, they're way more chill.
Yeah.
They're like not smashing games. They're not like, they just seem more chill with how they've approached everything. And maybe that was a regular season thing because they didn't feel like they needed to push as hard after just winning winter, just getting that qualification. But now it's playoffs. I know that team is hungry, so they're just they're gonna be. I'd imagine they're gonna be ready.
Clear favorites, and I think we'll see what Koi can do. But I don't want to spend too much time on that matchup, not because I don't think Koi deserves the attention, but because I just think BDS SK is super interesting to me because these are again two teams that last season I didn't expect to be anywhere. Who have both risen up, but recently BDS looking. We talked about them like maybe Vitality should have won that game against them. But when I look at BDS's season, I see a lot of games where they're winning pretty handedly early to mid game, and then they just throw. A lot of the losses that they did accrue were like really just like awkward late games, and maybe some of them they're getting outscaled. But like, what's your read on BDS as a team? Like, if you had to loosely stack rank them, or like a top 3 team, a top 4 team, where do you see BDS in the standings? Because in the regular season, obviously they did great, but that's just best of ones. Like, how scary is BDS really? Do you guys think?
Well, I thought their bot lane always had like a really strong read on the ranged matchups. I think they were maybe even, they were probably one of the best bot lanes specifically to the ranged matchups, and they're even good on the other ones. So I think if they can get that situation, then they can do really well. Whereas maybe if the matchups are a bit different, then it will be different. And I think with BDS, it is always kind of like how well can SK contain the Adam show, because I think Adam is like the ultimate X factor on top.
Yeah,
and he can just pick a Darius and solo kill you and take over the game out of nowhere. But in the past, you've also seen that Adam can have these games where it's like, is this really not working? And then you can win from that. So I think it's really just about how well can SK contain that. I think on top of the fact that Shio was, I think, also maybe a mini 1-1-3.
Yeah.
And so they also both have a crazy playstyle. They look for ganks, they look for picks, they look to skill check you. And maybe on the new patch, with some jungle changes, that is a bit worse. And then maybe Marcoon's like experience can take over there. But yeah, I think it will be mostly like how well can they contain Adam and how well can they contain the bot lane.
Yeah, we talked about Vitality as like super clear favorites. We talked about G2 as super clear favorites. Do you think BDS are really clear favorites, or do you think this is like actually a pretty close best of 3?
I actually have SK in my mind winning this series.
Interesting. I mean, they did beat BDS in the regular season, admittedly. Only one of their 2 losses, the other one being G2. But like, why do you have faith in SK? What is it that SK are doing that like makes you believe in them in this best of?
I don't know. It's just a feeling. I think from watching the split, SK had some really weird games.
Yep, I agree with that.
I don't think they ended 4-5 like us, right?
Yep.
I don't have the feeling that they're a 4-5 team. I think they're actually really good, really solid, and have been like from winter, playing really good around their bot lane. Jungle is doing really well. I think top is having some really good games. Seems like the perfect weak side guy. Mid is doing really well. Like Sartis had some really pop-off performances. Isakali comes to mind. I feel like that team is just really strong all around. Like they have a really good, just like idea of how to behave as a team. And then on the other side, I have BDS, which to me looks like they're losing a lot of games, and then they have, like what Hank said, the Adam show, where he just like completely takes over a game, or Crowny scales to the point where he can take over the game. But if I look at them as a team, I don't have the same feeling as I have when I look at SK.
Yeah.
It feels like BDS are stealing a lot of wins. Maybe in your mind, they're throwing a lot of losses, but in my mind, they're stealing a lot of wins.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I just have a feeling that SK might be the team in that series, and it's not to like put BDS down or anything, because I understand why there are 7 wins. Like Adam to me is really crazy player. I think he's like really carrying games to the point where
we've mentioned it a few times, but I do want to say it again. Like the glow up of Adam from his time on Fnatic and that like lower bracket run to now is really cool and is really wild to watch, because it felt like there was a portion of his career where he was going to play Olaf or Darius or Renekton or whatever, basically every game, and it felt like a lot of times it was a liability, and it felt like you were kind of flipping a coin a lot of the times, because he maybe didn't, but now he like wave control is better, laning is better. He is a player, is a more, like well-rounded player, and is bringing so much more to the table. And he's kept all that really obnoxious bullshit that people remember him for.
It fits well in this meta.
Yeah.
I think it may be a little bit worse now than in winter, but in winter it was like perfect Adam meta. I think with how Adam is playing, with how crazy he's playing, how much pressure he takes from the enemy team, that buys so much time for Crowny, because Crowny is also doing really well.
Yeah, shout out to Crowny.
On the other side.
Yeah.
So you have Adam that's like carrying the game for 30 minutes, like putting so much pressure, even to the point sometimes where he wins that game on his own. And if it ever goes south, you have Crowny scaling and at some point taking over, because he's only playing scaling picks. He never plays anything early game. Only playing scaling picks.
He's that late game insurance.
I see BDS more as like an individual strength team. They're winning off of like Adam popping off or Crowny popping off.
Yeah.
But
and I think
SK on the other side is just like, to me, a team, and I'm thinking then it's a best of 3. They had some really weird games in regular season. I don't think they're a 4-5 team, just as how I don't think BDS is a 7-2 team. So in my mind, SK is winning the series.
And the glue firepower kind of reference, I think BDS is a team with more firepower, but SK is absolutely, at least from my perspective, a team with more glue. They're a team that gels.
Maybe all they needed was the jungle change. Like with your camps being able to be invaded now, maybe the craziness that, as Hank said, like Shio brings or 113 brings is more easily punished, because now you can actually get invaded and lose your camps. And you can't just gank top on repeat. Maybe that's what BDS wants to do, or in 113's case, like maybe gank mid on repeat and get leader ahead. Like that's just more easily punished now. So it could be worse for these teams that really try to be as crazy as possible. And I don't see SK as a team that needs that. They just seem to win off of like being a good team.
Yeah. I think then the final kind of question here, who's actually making it out? 2 teams are making it out at the end of the day. You're giving SK the favor, you're giving G2 the favorite. So obviously one of them is making it out, but who's the other team? Is it G2 and SK all the way out of the group? Is it Koi and SK?
It could be Koi, honestly.
It could be anyone, but also G2. Like
it's G2 and somebody else.
It's G2 probably and so on, The thing is with Koi for me, they look lost, like completely lost when they play. And then all of a sudden they come into week 2 with this idea with the Xayah roaming mid, Lee Sin jungle, no matter what. And they look really good.
Yeah, kind of like the Lysandra, the TF. Look pretty good.
So now they have 2 weeks. Can they come up with another plan? Because they seem lost, but when they have a plan, all of a sudden they're insane. So can they come up with a plan? I would say probably. They have a lot of experience in that team on how it is to go far. I mean, they had the run last split, won the summer last year, so they have the experience there to make it. It feels like you shouldn't count them out just because they lose to G2 probably in the first series. If they have some sort of plan for this patch that they can find success on, I think that is something that can make them the second team in that group.
I want to see it. I want to see how weird the patch gets, because I think on paper it's a lot of small adjustments, but those are often those can sneak up on us in pro play.
They shift a lot of like priorities in other places, and then that shifts the rest, and suddenly you have a whole different game to play. So it can definitely change.
So we have Fnatic and Vitality making out of one group, G2 and somebody else, probably Koi or SK. Sorry, BDS.
It could be BDS.
I think
could also be BDS.
Also because of the the current trend of like BDS is kind of the team that's winning. They were doing well, and SK kind of had a slump.
Yeah.
Maybe after the first split, they shifted expectations rather than being the rookie team and being like everything's fine from this point. Suddenly they put pressure on themselves.
Oh, they did.
Which really doesn't help
No doubt.
their cause. And maybe BDS has that honeymoon phase SK had last split right now. So I think it could really be anyone there.
I like it. They're on a 3-win streak.
So Adam has Irrelevant, Broken Blade, and Shigenda.
Yep.
I think maybe against Irrelevant, it's hard for him to like completely take over. But
think
Shigenda
so.
matchup could be good for Adam, I think.
Shigenda, yeah, that's going to be volatile.
Because Shigenda is someone that contests way more, I think, than Irrelevant does. I think Irrelevant seems more like a weak side kind of guy, playing very smart and
Yeah,
steady.
I mean, like there'll be drafts where they give him Jax.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like when I think of Irrelevant this year, I think of Sion.
Yeah.
And that's not to
Sion
discredit
and Ganaria.
his like carry performances. I just think the Sion has been sick.
It's a harder angle for Adam to snowball, but against Shigenda, it's more of an angle because Shigenda will probably contest more. Against Broken Blade, maybe an angle as well for Adam to contest if they face up against each other. But in theory, they might not, right? Because
might not
it could
even see
be
each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be.
Interesting thing about the format. Well, let's get the schedule up. Matt's our producer. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to, before we go, this is the schedule for the week. Ready, check. 5:30 or 5:45, whether you're watching on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We're going to have the winners match on Monday. That is a big deal. So it's not an elimination match. It's the promotion match. So the winners from day 1 and day 2 will go through. So it's, if you win, that's a busy weekend. That's a lot of prep. So there's a lot of pressure here, but we're kicking off with Mad Lions versus Astralis. Or Mad Lions versus Vitality. Astralis versus Fnatic after that. I think me and Cadrel are casting that one. So if you've missed Cadrel.
You're casting our game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
They're going to be so... You guys have I don't even have to prep for this cast anymore. I'm just going to quote things from the podcast.
just need to
They're
park the car.
G2. They'll drop waves. They're Psycho. The park the car thing. Oh, this is great. I like all of my prep done in this hour and a half podcast. It's fantastic. But good luck to you.
Yes.
This is a series that I am genuinely, I think the series this weekend that I'm the most excited for. I think that and BDSSK are the two that I'm like really, really jazzed about. No discredit to the other ones. I just think that the results feel more predictable.
Yeah.
So want to see what you guys are going to do. Another big shout out to Pete from Fnatic. Doing a podcast without a co-host beside me is only possible because of all of this information that is available publicly about you guys and the way that you run your org in the form of these documentaries and voice comms, although those aren't nearly as useful. I'll be honest, although I have learned that Raswork does talk a lot. So that is not as useful, but good prep. And that's because of the wonderful content team in Fnatic led by Pete. So shout out to him. And yeah, again, thanks guys so much for coming. Great to have the insight. Glad to hear that nobody is sick anymore.
Yep.
And happy that you guys have turned it around. You guys have made it to top 8.
It was nice being here talking about League.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, we do it anyway, so it's nice to do it with you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Wait, I never got to ask you how you are. I wanted to ask you on
I'm-
the cast.
You know what? I'm good. I'm
Yep.
excited. I get to cast good League of Legends. This format is fun. And I think the nice thing about this podcast is that we rarely invite people when they're in a really rough spot. So I always leave here with this positivity that's like imbued into me from you guys and your wonderful experiences, which is going to give me the momentum I need to write a happy song about Rekkles. You know,
Nice.
it's going to, I'm kidding. Please don't set that expectation. I don't even know if that would be possible. The emo angle's just too good. I'm
It
sorry.
is.
So if you could just like leave the team again so I could write a song, maybe that would
Maybe
be
Crash and Burn, another split.
Yeah, Crash and Burn, one more. So as much as I love Happy You, it's just the material for the song isn't the same, you know?
Yeah.
We're going for the emo angle, not the Beatles angle. I'm just kidding. No, I'm good. Thanks for asking, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast again, guys.
Yeah,
this has been episode 11 of EUphoria. We'll be back next week. I think we're trying to get BDS this time around, so we'll see what they have to say. Not sure who we're going to grab yet, but Kate will be back as well, so look forward to that. Otherwise, this has been episode 11, and we'll see you next time.